Amma, this is not right. If she does not want to marry him, then you can't force her, firmly took Vine's side. Yeri tried to understand. We can't say no to them. He himself wants to marry her when no one is willing to. Kim's forgave her and it is now our turn to do what? Sacrifice Vine as an act of gratitude? And it wasn't even her fault. We are not sacrificing Vine. Taehyung and Vine have been in love since childhood. We have seen how happy they were together. Time has changed now, Mom. Taehyung is not same anymore, and Vine is afraid of him. When she herself said no to the marriage, then how can we assume that she still loves him? But she will marry him and that's final. Mr. Kang entered the living room, where Yeri and Mrs. Kang were arguing. He gave his final decision in firm voice, leaving no room for further discussion on this matter. However, for the first time, Yeri defied her parents and stood up for her little sister. She sensed something that the elders were too senseless to sense. You can't destroy her. We are her parents and we know what's best for her. No, you don't know what will happen to her in the future, so you don't know what's best for her. No one is willing to marry her, and Taehyung himself asked his parents to send the proposal, even after being aware of her disability and her mental health. We should be grateful to them, and this way, maybe there is a chance that we might regain our name, which we lost after that incident. In the heat of moment, he spoke harshly, without considering the consequences of his words. So that's the case, Dad. I always thought that you would never sacrifice your daughters like other wealthy people in our community. I thought you were different, but you proved me wrong today. Yeri! He raised his voice at her along with his hand, but stopped before it could touch her. Yeri looked at her father with tears in her eyes, while deafening silence covered the room, until Vine spoke. I'm ready. Yeri immediately turned to Vine, who was standing right behind her. Her blank gaze pointed at her father, whose eyes softened upon witnessing the drained figure of his youngest one. Walked towards Vine and held her cheek lovingly. Vine, don't worry. I'm talking to them. I'm ready to marry him. Yeri's hand slipped from her cheek in shock, and Vine made her way to her room once again, leaving everyone in a baffling situation. One month later, he stood at the altar, waiting for her. His face, a mask of calm, betrayed none of the storm within. Image of his sister's lifeless body flashed before his eyes. The image he would never forget. The image that fueled his desire for revenge. The image that awoke his sleeping beast. Memories of that night invaded his mind. The night when his entire universe around him shattered. The news of his sister's, the chilling realization of betrayal, and the rage that followed. He remembered the day he learned the truth about her. Hearing the shocking news of Mizo's accident, I dropped everything and flew back to Korea on an emergency flight. I felt my breath locked in my throat throughout the journey. I, who had never believed in such things, prayed constantly for my sister's well-being. It felt like the longest journey I had ever taken, and when I finally landed, Hyunwoo was waiting for me at the airport. The moment my gaze fell on him, his pale physique, the unending tears in his eyes, and the fear on his face announced the sentence of my hopes. My steps shook as I approached him, and as I stood in front of him, he went blank for a moment. Hyunwoo, his voice quivered as he tried to control his emotions. He choked on his words and held Taehyung right away. Taehyung, she left me. She left us, Tae. He wailed as his body shook in Taehyung's embrace. My mind stopped processing the moment Hyunwoo broke the news, and the next thing I saw was darkness surrounding me. After a few hours, I woke up with a gasp as I saw a nightmare. Nightmare in which Mizo and I strangled myself too, while I could hear just one thing, her cries, my vine's piercing cries. I looked around with the hope that everything was a nightmare, but instead found myself in somewhat familiar situation. I shook my head and was about to run out of my suffocating room, only to encounter Hinwo again. He came inside the room holding a tray. You woke up? Put the tray on the nightstand. Where is everyone? His heart beats frantically. We'll meet them shortly. At her funeral. Tears slipped from his eyes as he looked away from Taehyung. What do you mean? Held Hyunwoo's shoulder and tried to look into his eyes. I'm not even getting one last chance to meet her. Just looked down and cried while shaking his head. Don't stay quiet, Hyung. I deserve an explanation. She was happy. We just talked a few days ago, and she was fine. He shook Hyunwoo by his shoulders while asking him, pushed him away upon not getting any answer. Within a moment, Taehyung turned the whole room into a mess. He broke everything in his sight and yelled loudly, making Hyunwoo flinch and shiver in his place. Hyunwoo stood there, silent, as Taehyung sank to the floor, his body racked with sobs. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight on his chest. He felt like he was drowning, gasping for air, but finding none. He remembered Mizo's laughter, her bright smile, the way she lit up her room. He remembered their last conversation, their silly fights, and the plans they made. Who crashed her car? Finding a new spark of wrath within himself, he demanded an answer in his raspy, deep voice, a clear declaration of a new disaster on its way. Hyunwoo sat in front of Taehyung between the rooms, on the messed floor, and grasped Taehyung's shoulder. Believe me, you don't want to know the person behind it. How much worse can it get now? As Taehyung's dark eyes met Hyunwoo's gaze, Hyunwoo dropped the guts to look at the dark soul again, so he looked at his hands instead and spoke. Wine. Wine. Whispered as a mere name silenced his beast. Sniffed to control his sobs. Where is she? He found himself getting his senses back at her mention. She is behind all this. As Hyunwoo dropped another bomb on his head, Taehyung screamed at the top of his lungs and unexpectedly started laughing loudly. Tears were streaming down his cheeks as he was laughing maniacally. Hyunwoo scooted back after getting scared by Taehyung's psychotic behavior. It looked as if he had lost his mind, and now Hyunwoo was regretting his decision of telling him directly. Taehyung's laugh lingered in the air until he started to smash his already palms on the broken pieces of glass scattered all over the floor. Hyunwoo shouted in horror and clutched Taehyung's arm, but the force Taehyung had within him was unbeatable. Stop it! It can't be. She wouldn't do this. Why would she? Laughed while crying. You're lying, right? His vision blurred with tears as he looked around like a madman while chanting continuously. She is behind all this time. Why are you crying for her when she was betraying you all along? With one swift move, Hyunwoo found his body pressed against the wall forcefully and his thought at the mercy of Taehyung's hand. His grip was dangerously tight around Hyunwoo's neck, him mercilessly making him see his end. I said she can't do this, he screamed, the sound raw and broken. He tightened his grip further, making Hyunwoo's eyes roll to the back, while his face was turning blue gradually due to the lack of oxygen. Taehyung wasn't stopping anytime soon, as he became blinded by his rage, because Hyunwoo dared to talk bad about Taehyung's sensitive spot. So to save himself from Taehyung's brutality, He continued to speak through his shallow breaths and clenched teeth. Ryan crashed Mizo's car, but she survived. Can ask anyone about it. His grip loosened as he shook his head. It must be an accident. Coughed and gasped for air, touched his neck, which was painted with Taehyung's now. It was all pre-planned, Taehyung. Didn't you notice since the past few years how Mizo changed from a cheerful girl to the girl who was barely surviving? Even you asked her 1,000 times about the matter. But how could she tell you that the girl you love is behind her depression? Tang intimidating eyes terrified Hyunwoo to the core, but he gulped and continued. Wine changed after you left, or maybe her mask fell off, which she was putting in front of you. She started going to clubs and parties with boys and drinking heavily. She fell into bad habits, and when Mizo tried to stop her, she made Mizo her target. She would ridicule her in front of everyone, while portraying herself as a best friend. And you know how innocent our Mizo is. She has attachment issues, which is why she couldn't do anything except crying for her best friend. She would cry in my embrace for wine for hours. And when I asked her to tell you about it, Miso denied, saying that she did not want to break your heart. Started shedding tears once again. At the day of accident, Wan was drunk driving. She called Miso telling her how excited she is to drive. Miso got worried and tried to stop her on the phone. But when Wan didn't listen to her, Miso went in her car to stop her. But Wan? He stopped speaking and let his tears explain the afterward happenings. How do you know? Huh? Looked at Taehyung being stunned as he was taken aback by his question. Where's the proof and how do you know everything? His voice turned and cold despite the tears in his eyes. Here, during investigation, they recovered it from her wrecked phone. He offered his phone with shaky hands, which Taehyung quickly grabbed. Taehyung intently listened to the voice note after playing it, speaking in a drunk tone. Stop me if you can, Miso. I'm going to drive. Yoo-hoo! Next voice note played, in which Miso was trying to stop Wine in a panic tone. Wine, you're not in your senses. Stop it. Stay where you are. I'm coming. No, I am coming. Giggles at them. After that, Hyunwoo showed me many pics and videos in which Wine was partying with boys and drinking like animals. Even I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe that she was the same innocent, naive girl whose sincerity used to speak through her eyes. I sank to my knees, the weight of the betrayal too much to bear. Anguish tore through me, a primal pain that left me gasping for breath. I banged my fist against the floor, the physical pain a mere distraction from the agony inside. Damn you! I shouted, my voice breaking. You took everything from me, my sister, my trust, my heart. And in that moment, I made a silent prayer. She would pay for what she had done. I would make sure of it. And with that, I let the pain wash over me, surrendering to the grief that consumed my soul. I remember every lie she had told, every deceitful smile she had given. I was lost in my grief when the doors opened and she walked in with her father. There she was, a vision in white, ethereal and beautiful as she began her slow walk towards me. She was breathtaking, her beauty a stark contrast to the darkness within her. Her each step brought her closer to the inevitable reckoning. After 6 years, we came face to face. Our eyes met and the world around me stopped. She looked down, probably unable to look at me since she knew what she had done. Her father handed her hand to me and I could feel her shivering. It should feel right, but I don't know why it hurts. She never dared to look at me, and the priest started the vows. I vow to cherish you, I said, coldly staring into her eyes. To hold you close and never let you go. My grip on her hand tightened, a silent warning. I vow to protect you, to be your shelter in the storm. Sliding the ring onto her finger, I whispered the final vow, and I vow to make you pay for every tear you caused, for every moment of pain you brought into my life. To the guest, my words were those of a devoted husband, but the flicker of something in her eyes, doubt, perhaps fear, told me she sensed the truth. She needed to know that this was far from over. As I leaned in to kiss her, sealing our marriage, she flinched and closed her eyes. She bit her red, trembling lips in fear, and I liked the way. Her vulnerability gave my soul some sort of satisfaction and revived the beast within me. I pulled her close by wrapping my arms around her waist, and she gasped as she clasped against me. I set her slightly, lift free from the torture of her bite, and whispered in her ear. These lips are mine to bite. You took my everything away from me, but I won't let you do the same with my right. Consider this the beginning of your end. His voice low and threatening. Placing an unchaste kiss on the side of her lip, I leaned back completely, and upon seeing the trembling, enchanting figure, I realized that the forbidden things on a sacred sound.